Blenders, and welcome to episode number 191 of ReelBlend, a podcast that is exactly 2.84 points better than Jake. My name is Sean O'Connell, the winner of this week's fantasy football. You got that mug just for this week. I love it. The winner of this week's fantasy football, and also the managing editor here at Cinema Blend, Jake, is quitting the show. And may not speak for the rest of this. So I'm really glad that Gabe Kovac is going to be joining us. I'll get to introductions in a second. On this week's show, we have a new Spider-Man trailer to discuss. Ghostbusters Afterlife is going to hit theaters, and we're going to review that in addition to a ton of other movies that are opening. And then our guests, oh my God. Our guests are Jason Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters Afterlife, and his father, Ivan Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters 1 and 2, is joining his son for a conversation here on the ReelBlend podcast, and it's something else. So let's get right to the show because we've got a lot to get into. I'm sorry, with Jake Hamilton. Jake, to be fair, I didn't want to make that joke because our contest was so close going through Monday night that literally in the third quarter we were still. Like the estimate at the bottom of who could win was still 50-50. It was
Please tell me more about how you didn't want to make a joke that you just made.
Yeah, I know, but it's for the show. It's for the people who are listening. So you understand, right?
I invited you into that freaking league, dude.
It's Jake Hamilton of Fox 32 in Chicago. Kev is on vacation. Kev's enjoying a cruise at the moment, yes. And so Gabe Kovac slides into the third chair.
You're toward an ass whooping. That's what you're cruising for.
How are you, brother? Good to see you.
I'm good. I'm dressed as Willem Dafoe in The Life Aquatic right now, who, as we'll learn later in the show, actually appears in Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Yes, he does. Well, we hear his voice.
But he's this character from Life Aquatic. That's what everyone doesn't know. It's not Green Goblin.
It's getting weird.
It's a bunch of Wes Anderson characters that are invading Spider-Man's universe.
I would watch the hell out of that. You're going to be kidding me. That'd be fantastic.
You want twee Spider-Man? Okay.
Has anyone seen French Dispatch?
No.
It's in theaters by me.
It's just... I've told you guys in the past that I'm very hit and miss with Wes Anderson, and the description that I've heard from many people is it's the most Wes Anderson movie Wes Anderson's ever made, which is not a description that's making me want to rush out and go see it.
I understand that, but then every single time one of his movies comes around, and it's something as like Isle of Dogs or what was right before that? The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh, I did love Grand Budapest.
And I'm always like, this just looks like it's going to be too much. And then I go watch it and I'm like, this is delightful. Like it is delightful. So I have to get over and see it because it's sitting in theaters. But there's a lot coming, as you guys will see. If you're watching us on YouTube, to look at Gabe's Life Aquatic cosplay, say hello, hit subscribe, turn on notifications. And if you're listening as an audio listener for the very first time or trying to catch up with the show and figure out what it is, you can go over to youtube.com/ReelBlend podcast and watch a visual element. Of course, we're available everywhere you get your podcasts. If you would like to sign up for ReelBlend Premium, you can get an ad-free version of the show, an extra segment each week on Mondays, those drop, and a newsletter. And I'm going to be writing a newsletter this week. It'll arrive every single Friday. So check the description for information on where to sign up for ReelBlend Premium. And I want to let you guys know that we dropped a bonus episode this week. We had an interview with King Richard director Ronaldo Marcus Green. Terrific storyteller, not just in his film, which is a crowd pleaser of a film. Will Smith starring as the father of Venus and Serena Williams, and all about their upbringing. But just talking to Ray about his background. He was a kindergarten teacher. He, an unusual path to becoming a film director, studying with the directors of the 1970s and essentially getting crash courses with being able to interact with several of them. And just the dude knows his cinema. So it's a terrific bonus episode. If you haven't had a chance to go listen to it, Ronaldo Marcus Green talking about King Richard. It's wherever you get all of our episodes, and it's also there's a video element on one of our YouTube channels. So
that's sure you guys it's just go insane check that out. Like the director of one of the most anticipated movies of the week, of the month, of the season, is our bonus episode.
I know, but when you have the Reitmans, last week Hans Zimmer was a bonus.
Yeah, there's no difference. It's just how many we have.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just the idea that like we've got too much stuff for one show. There has to be another show.
I know. It's very true. We're blessed. We're very, very lucky that the studios.
One day I'm going to find out that I didn't make the main show. They're like, sorry, Jake, but we'll get you in on the bonus.
You'll always be part of the show, Jake. Come on. Put that mug down. Put that mug down. All right, weekly poll.
If you're not watching us on YouTube, you're really missing a great visual element.
Jake, I got to throw this to you because Gabe has seen the poll. I asked the people.
You could have just said, Jake, I'm going to throw this to you because I really care about what you think.
Because I really want to hear.
My ego really needs some help this week.
It is an issue. I'm going to have to start throwing compliments your way. The weekly poll was, when will you see Ghostbusters Afterlife? I don't. So answer me this, because it feels like with a lot of the buzz about Spider-Man and that Disney Plus day with the dump of information about Marvel shows and Star Wars shows, and maybe because Ghostbusters peaked a little bit early by going to New York Comic Con, that I feel like the buzz on this isn't as strong as it should be this week. And so for that reason, I wanted to ask people, like, when do they think they're going to go see it? So I gave them the options of opening weekend, in theaters eventually, and then probably at home. So where do you think the people went?
I think I agree with you. And it almost reminds me of, and it would work out if the result was the same, but it almost reminds me of Dune. Remember with Dune, we were saying how is this movie not out already? And I think a huge part of it is, like Dune, we did the junket 6 weeks before the movie came out, and we got all excited about it, and we all saw it, and then we all kind of stopped talking about it, and then all of a sudden it popped up and went. And even one of my bosses at work, whenever I was talking about it, he goes that movie hasn't come out yet? I thought that movie came out already. I was like, no, that's not good that you don't know that. I think most people probably said eventually, because most people I talked to seem to at least be interested in it. I don't know if I've talked to anyone that's like, oh my God, I'm going Saturday. But everyone I talked to is, oh yeah, I really want to go see it.
Actually, Kelly, who works with us at CinemaBlend, who is a very big fan of the first two Ghostbusters, and I asked her today, as she actually listens to ReelBlend on the regular. So hello, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
I said, are you going this weekend to go see Ghostbusters? And she was like, oh my gosh, that's right. She is in the wheelhouse and had to be reminded that it's coming this weekend.
Who are you going to call? Movie phone.
Well, I guess you're going to call Kelly and remind her that Ghostbusters is coming. No, Jake. The winner of the poll was probably at home.
No.
40.7 people said probably at home. Ooh. 34% of the people said opening weekend.
That's concerning.
And then 24% said in theaters eventually. So, yeah, kind of split, kind of all over the place. And this is not one of those titles that's available on streaming in any way, shape, or form early. So you're going to have to go to the theater if you want to go see it.
I will note that we also put this poll. This is the Twitter poll. We also put it on YouTube, which is a bit of a wider audience.
Sure.
And gets a lot more interaction on it. And it had 60% last I checked. Probably at home.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, which I thought was kind of crazy.
That's discouraging because it is really a film that, and if
some
you're interested in it at all.
Yeah, and there were some people who pointed out in the comments that they were not interested in the movie at all. So there's that.
Do you think it was the 2016 version that have turned people off to the idea of the franchise?
No, because it's not like it's not like Star Wars.
Right, right.
That was kind of its own thing.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
This
one very much made the statement of we're returning to Ghostbusters.
Oh, then can we play a quick box office guess what we think it's going to do?
Yeah. We
I like that.
Down.
That's kind of fun. Jake, any idea? Want to go first?
Here's what I'll say is that I really do think that maybe it doesn't have a massive, big, splashy, opening weekend. I'll peg it at, I hope I'm being conservative and underestimating. I'm going to say 25.
Okay.
But I also think and we've talked about this, movies that come out around Thanksgiving can be really sneaky, where you look at their opening weekend and you think okay, yeah, that's decent. And then all of a sudden you look up 4 weeks later and go, wait, what the hell? How did it make $200 million? And it's just because it just consistently keeps making, on days that normally would be dead at the movies, all of a sudden all the families are going out and seeing it. I think it's in a really good position to have some legs. Eternal seems to be kind of dying down. There's not a ton of, and I could see, dads very much being like, hey kids, I grew up on these, let's go see the new Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
But my prediction is maybe it doesn't blow us all away this weekend, But I think ultimately the Thanksgiving Day placement is really smart, and that it could give it some really great legs.
Okay. I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to go 29. I'll go a little bit higher than you.
What, optimistic? That's 4 million more than me.
I was going to say, you think that's optimistic?
I do, because
go ahead.
I would be afraid to see a number come back in the teens. Like, I'm worried that happens. I'm a little worried that happens.
See, I thought I was kind of landing in the like, this is reasonable, whereas Jake is playing it safe at 30 million.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the hope that it would, with the hope that it would like get closer to 40. But you think 25 is like already pretty optimistic. If you think 29 is optimistic, you think 25 is like reasonable?
I will say that I'm hesitant to even put a number in the 30s, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, only because going into this week, I do not sense the buzz being there for it. And I don't know. Because word of mouth was strong coming out of the New York Comic Con screening.
But then again, to play devil's advocate, because we often talk about how sort of we exist within this movie bubble, right, on Twitter. And we've talked about that in the sense of, like, In the Heights. All of us thought In the Heights was going to be massive because we were all talking about it, and then it came out. It didn't really. Do you think because the bubble in which we exist, all of us really already saw the movie like 6 to 8 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Do you think because the bubble in which we exist kind of already saw it and moved on, that maybe we're equating that to a more wide-span audience who actually may be aware of it this week?
It's very possible.
I think that's fair. Yeah. And so also the hype around, to use that analogy, the hype that we were building around In the Heights was Hamilton. Everyone was like, oh yeah, Hamilton's the biggest thing on the planet. So it has to be, everyone has to be excited about the next thing.
Sure.
Whereas this is like, it's a Ghostbusters thing and everyone is a big fan of Ghostbusters. Like it's more, it makes more sense.
And they are not shying away from letting, which is amazing because I got ripped apart on YouTube for talking to the actors about the original guys coming back, and now the original guys are doing like interviews on Fallon. Like they're not shying away from the. It would be like if Toby and Andrew were just like out there on Kimmel, like yakking it up about Spider-Man. Like they're not hiding the fact that these guys are in it.
Wasn't one of the biggest problems people had with the 2016 version was that like it just kind of. It was a total reboot. It didn't touch on
because the original guys were in it, but they
were different people.
Yeah, but they played different people. Yeah, it was not good.
So I could see why, again, they're trying to play like, hey, this isn't 2016 version is not related to this, and also we're doing the things that you wanted. So I could see that.
All right, this is a completely unscientific. Oh, all right, well that's interesting. This is a completely unscientific poll. But I went to my AMC. Oh, okay, hold on, never mind. I take it back. I went to Thursday night. And I pulled up the 7:00 screening at an AMC close to my house. And I pulled up the seating chart, and there were 7 seats sold for it. And then I pulled up the seating chart for a different AMC, and there were 4 seats sold for it. Thursday night, 7:00. Now, I jumped ahead to Friday, where they have a lot more screens set during the day. And the 2:30 screening on a Friday was sold out. Okay. And then I pulled up the 7:00 one, and there's roughly 9 seats left. So that's much better.
That makes me feel better.
That is much better. Yes.
Yeah. Now, I really do think that maybe it's a situation where like maybe the Thursday numbers aren't going to be good, but I could see it doing very well like midday Saturday.
Well, I think you're right about this too, in that this isn't Thanksgiving weekend, right?
Yeah.
So it's getting a little bit of a head start. But I see this as a big Thanksgiving play.
Sure. 100%.
I think there's going to be a lot of families either on Black Friday or even Thursday after they're done eating who say, oh, we should all go see the Ghostbusters movie, right? And then it has a really strong second week.
Yeah, I hope it does. I really do.
Because families aren't really going out to see House of Gucci, right?
But they should.
But that's a movie I'm curious to see how well it does. Like an R-rated movie that's almost 3 hours that a lot of people have been asking me. Now that's a movie that a lot of people have been coming to me asking me.
I think Gaga stands are gonna flood the theater.
I don't know how to judge that movie.
I cannot. But you know what? I
haven't seen it though either, so I don't really know what it's offering.
Right.
Every time a movie comes out, you know what everyone asks me these days?
What?
Where can I stream it?
Really?
Yeah,
that's a habit we gotta get people out of.
Yeah, honestly, that's like everyone, because I aired some House of Gucci interviews on my show today, and everyone came up and was like, "Oh, we're like, I can stream it next week," and I was like, "You can stream it into your eyeballs if you go into a movie theater."
Yeah, right. We're gonna stream it. Yeah. The Regal Cinemas. Yeah. Go.
Jake, do you remember when you were a kid? I say Jake, maybe Sean had this experience as well. But do you remember the push for the turn off your TVs and go outside, on Nickelodeon, like on the kids channels where they would have like a day or whatever, a weekend where they were like, let's turn off our TVs and go outside? That sounds
vaguely familiar. That does sound vaguely familiar.
We need that for streaming. Let's shut down all the streaming services for a big weekend in the summer and let's go to the theater, Next summer, let's do it.
I'm all for
it. Gabe, look, we're trying to get some talent from Tick Tick Boom. You are not helping us.
Oh yeah, you're right. But also, we'll turn
on Netflix. Turn on Netflix.
Right back on. We'll turn them right back on.
Yeah. Not that streaming
We'll leave
service.
it on, but we'll just leave.
The other ones.
Yeah. Are you still watching? Yes, we are.
Yeah. I'm always watching.
All right, listen, we're killing time here, and we have a terrific interview to throw to, namely the men responsible for the Ghostbusters franchise in the first place. Ivan Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and his son Jason, who is picking up the baton and trying to continue the legacy of this franchise. And the two of them got together. This was a lot of fun. I'll tell you a fun story about this after the fact. But without further ado, Jason and Ivan Reitman as guests on the ReelBlend podcast.
Insane.
So not to name drop, this is a really weird name drop, but Damien Chazelle came on our show a while ago, and he told us this really interesting fact.
Fancy people, got it.
We do, yeah. We hang out with the elite, the cream of the crop. He told us this cool thing that I never even thought of, but it's so true, is that your opening scene is so important because you only really have the audience's full attention at that moment. Like, they don't know yet if the movie that they're sitting down for is Citizen Kane or some piece of trash that they're never going to see again. So I really wanted to know how you guys came up with the way that you were going to open the first Ghostbusters in X amount of years.
Well, it was Jason's idea. Jason wrote this script and really had it all. I just got to watch.
Jason, did you have anything in particular?
I knew that we wanted to open with an action set piece. The thing that I loved about the original Ghostbusters is right from the get-go in the original, even though it was a comedy, it told you that the scares were going to be legit. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was at the Directors Guild a few years ago on a panel with Steven Spielberg because, you know what? I know some fancy people too.
Now, that's a better name drop. Wow. You're winning so far.
Hanging. Anyway, he leans over to me and goes, "What are you doing next?" And I said, "I'm doing Ghostbusters." And out of nowhere, he just goes, "Library Ghost. Top 10 scares of all time." and he's right. It's just like one of the great scares. And by the way, this is from like the guy who, made Jaws. So I knew that I wanted something off the top that was just as legit that let you know we're taking this seriously. And we wanted a real action set piece. We wanted something that would be elliptical with the end of the film. And we knew that this movie, this is very tough to do, guys, because I don't want to give things away, even in the beginning of the movie.
Sure, I understand.
And obviously, as you guys know, we open with something big. We open with something groundbreaking, which sets our main characters on their journey that connects us from the past to the present into the future. But that was what was behind it.
Cool. Yeah. It's an amazing opening. Yeah. Jason, you told me a great story yesterday during the TV junket that I want to get your father's reaction on. So I know, Jason, you were in Ghostbusters 2. You have that scene. But Jason, you told me that you shot a scene for Ghostbusters 1 with your sister and your mom.
Yep.
And then that scene was cut out of the movie.
I'm so happy that you're bringing this up. I think this is a good time to air this out. Let's talk about this, shall we?
A little bit of therapy. But so, Ivan, you cut this scene out of Ghostbusters 1 of your son, your daughter, and your wife.
That's it. Just your son, your daughter, and your wife. Let's cut them out of the movie.
And then that footage has now been brought back here, which is so incredible in terms of like legacy. But Ivan, I wanted to get your perspective because you shoot that scene. Like, how hard was that to cut? And Jason, do you remember that being cut from the film? And how did you end up finding the footage?
Well, I tried really hard actually to keep it. we were
real hard. It just broke his heart.
First of all, I only had one take. He wouldn't go back for a second time. He was frightened about doing a second take.
That's not true, because I've gone into the dailies and there were 2 takes. Roll the tape, gentlemen.
But Ivan, was that a tough decision to cut that out?
I remember. I mean, it's almost 40 years ago, and I still remember the conversations I had with Sheldon Kahn, who was our editor, about this damn scene. And
he goes, "When will this ever come up again?" He said. No one will ever know. This will be our secret. We'll put it in the back of that vault with the lost ark.
That's funny.
Anyway, I can't remember. I mean, we had parts of that scene in there, but I get because I've always wanted it in there, and I can't remember how it ended up out of it. And when Jason pulled it out, we did this thing, I guess, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, the beginning of the pandemic, the Ghostbusters Day, where you did this wonderful thing where you archived a bunch of stuff, outtakes from the original Ghostbusters. And
I knew that I wanted to use footage from the '84 film in this film. And so what was incredible is, if you work in this business, you hear about this thing. I'm sure you guys have heard it before. Like, oh yeah, they keep all the negatives in the salt mine. Have you heard this before?
In Kansas, right?
Yeah, and it's like, where is this salt mine filled with film? And so I pushed them on it because I kind of honestly thought that they were just full of shit. They're like, it's the same they tell the directors. They're like, don't worry, the dailies are in the salt mine. They get just like, where are we going to go looking for that? And lo and behold, a truck full of boxes show up at Sony, and it's all the original negative from 1984. And we start scanning 65 millimeter cloud tank footage. We start scanning 35 millimeter original dailies, original camera dailies from 1984. And they look amazing. I mean, when you hear Chris Nolan and PTA talking about why you shoot on film, this is why. It looked extraordinary. So we started scanning stuff, and I knew there was stuff that we wanted to put in this movie. And I said, you gotta look for this take. I know the scene. It's outside the apartment building, and it's my mom, it's my sister and I. And sure enough, they find the dailies. And I reserved director's cut for one thing. I knew that was going in.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad we got to get that therapy. We had to get that worked out.
Thank you.
I think we made it worse. Guys, I really think since the second Ghostbusters 2 ended, audiences around the world, we've been like looking at our watches going, okay, like Ghostbusters 3 when? Like let's go. I'm curious, over the last 30 years, how many different iterations or variations of a, like, for lack of a better word, a Ghostbusters 3 idea have there been? And other than Afterlife, which one is the one that got the closest to happening?
Well, it was probably something I was working on with Harold before he passed away. And we just, we wanted to tell a story. It was really, in that story, in fact, Bill Murray dies in the first sequence. Did I ever tell you this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he gets hit. He gets hit by a bus in Manhattan, and then Murray was coming back as a ghost.
He was basically making Meet Joe Black.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That's it.
I would actually watch that.
I'm here for it. I'm totally here for it.
I actually watch that.
I would love to see Meet Joe Black with Bill Murray instead of Brad Pitt.
Unfortunately, Harold died, and so that never got made. And I decided that I was no longer going to make another Ghostbusters movie myself as a director. And I think, then Paul Feig made the next one, and Jason now has really sort of continued the story that we started with the first and second films.
Absolutely. Jason, I want to dive into your work with Eric Stilberg, who I think is a brilliant DP.
Yeah.
And the work that you guys have done to this point, very current, very modern.
You know what he's shooting right now?
No, I don't.
He's got pulled into the Star Wars universe.
Who is he filming for?
He's the DP on their new TV show.
Is he really?
Yeah, swear to God.
Spielberg is brilliant.
My editor is on Mandalorian, and my DP guy's gone to the new spinoff. So.
Is he shooting?
You go to a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's hard to visit him.
Is he shooting Boba Fett? The Book of Boba Fett?
No, it's the next one.
Oh, the next one after that? Okay. Well, I just wanted you to talk about conversations that you had with him so that your footage would look and you have a look and feel in this movie that looks like 35 millimeter.
Yeah.
That, connects visually to the 84 film. What were some of the conversations you had to maybe change your approach and
so look, obviously, Eric and I have known each other since we were 15 years old. The first short film we worked on together, we had to be dropped off because we didn't have driver's licenses yet. And we have such a shorthand at this point. And we grew up on the same movies. We're the same age. We grew up in LA and loved all the movies that were the influence for this. And it started out with a conversation about Laszlo Kovacs and how he shot the original Ghostbusters, which has a really clean look. It's interesting because if you think about supernatural films, your presumption is that they're going to be kind of overtly colorful in their lighting approach. And the lighting is actually clean. It's like everything in Ghostbusters. The concept was to make it real. And what we wanted to combine that with was our sense of mutual nostalgia, which comes from the movies of the 80s directed by my father, Zemeckis, Spielberg, talking about, obviously, E.T., Back to the Future, Goonies, Gremlins, like all these movies that have become kind of a part of how we remember, like what we think movies were, how we think our teenage years were, and that time when teenage stories were told with a sense of reality, with real stakes. So it became this kind of combination of how do we make a movie that feels 100% like Ghostbusters and simultaneously reminds us of what it was like to watch those movies in the 80s as kids.
I want to geek out with you both about how the proton pack has shifted in terms of where we are with technology now, in terms of the way it's fired in the movie and kind of the effects that are created for it. Ivan, for you, the scene in the original when they're in the hotel and they're doing the don't cross the streams to get Slimer to go into the box. I want to compare the way you shot that scene and kind of what the streams were back then. And then Jason, for you with the chase in the towards the beginning with the car as they're trying to chase Muncher. Kind of how the effects have changed. Like, is the sound effects still the same with the proton pack, and like how you actually created the digital aspect of it? So for Ivan, for you, how did you do it back then? And Jason, how'd you do it here?
Well, we built a prop, and we got a great sound designer, much in post-production, a very contracted time. I forgot his name now. He was a really famous, he worked for Coppola on his ranch where he was doing the sound mixing for all his films. And I thought he was just a great sound creator. But, we would try to do things practically. We shot actually in a real hotel in downtown Los Angeles in that sequence for most of it. And we built fake walls in front of the real walls, and our walls had different kinds of explosives beneath it, so that, the guys would shoot and it would just go boom, 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 and we would have the effect live. And then electronic, in post-production, we would add animated, because those were animated. They weren't digitally created, so they're really 2D.
They were drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, they must have been drawn back then.
That's
yeah.
cool.
But we had a real 3D effect practically on the set, and so all that kind of stuff, and it was fairly carefully choreographed.
Cool.
So even things like the cart, had a wire on it, that went through the back wall that some guys on a cube would yank as fast as they could, and it naturally just crashed against the wall, and all the stuff would fall off.
Wow. That's awesome. And Jason, for your streams, I would imagine you did them digitally now, right? Versus drawing them.
So going into Afterlife, we wanted to make everything in the original recipe. So we studied the original Ghostbusters frame by frame. So when my dad describes the way they would use practical reaction effects on set, we did the same exact thing. So we would study and go, all right, the first thing that happens when a proton beam hits something, there's a spark. So the first thing you'll see when, for instance, in the Foundry, when a proton beam first makes contact, spark. Then what you do is in the second shot, you lay a line of fuel so that you can get the lingering flames. If you think about it in the hotel, right? They hit something, it sparks, and then in the next shot, you see like a line with frames on it. Exactly. So first shot, spark. Second shot, flame line. And then in between, you gotta have the proton beam. We did go back and we found the original sound file. Will Files, who worked on Force Awakens, worked on this film, went back, found the original, actually went into the mix, and pulled out the sound files for PKE meter, the proton pack turning on, the neutrino one firing, the siren for Ecto 1. All of that sound goes back to the original. People love to ask about the Easter eggs. The real Easter eggs are in the sound. Right from the Columbia logo, you are hearing audio Easter eggs that let you know you're in a Ghostbusters film. But I'll tell you the craziest thing about, also, we're also driving in this movie. So we had to figure out, what does a proton beam do while you're driving?
Oh, that's right.
Right? Because you're not standing still. So now,
the gunner's seat was so cool, man.
Now we're adding wind, and what happens to the proton beam in the way that it breaks? If you look at our proton beam, when they're driving, it starts to wave more because now it's getting all this air pollution flying through it, and we wanted to give it this sense of wave, and it slaps the ground when they drive because she's a girl, she's this kid, and she can't hold on to as much. So if you watch the movie carefully, you will notice that our proton beam is constantly slapping the ground every time they come around corners.
That's amazing. There is a shot. There's a shot of of Ecto has a ghost in the beam and a trap underneath it as it's approaching a bridge. That's one of the most beautiful shots in the movie. Oh my God!
I'm so happy. That's one of the first. Yeah, it's one of the first images I thought of when I thought of this movie, and I was like, "This is an image I know that we want." And we found a very specific road in Calgary that was we found it specifically for that shot. We knew where the sun was. It was framed exactly for it. So I'm glad it stayed with you.
Oh, it belongs on a wall. Belongs on a wall.
Awesome.
Jason, I don't know how many podcasts you're doing, but you've never fit into a group more so than this podcast. This is very much like you're at home, man.
Guys, look, I spent my life looking for people who wanted to talk about movies as much as I did. I think every one of us is someone who in school was like, why doesn't everyone want to talk about movies as much as I do? Why are they getting bored? And then, here's the cool thing that happened the other night. I went to Comic-Con and something hit me in the heart, which was, it feels just like Sundance. Comic-Con and Sundance are the same thing. It's a collection of people who love movies as much as I do, and all they want to do is talk about film. And that was the moment I realized, I can make Sundance movies and Comic-Con movies.
Yeah, very true.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jason, without getting into spoilers, you guys bring back a lot of fan favorite creatures and a lot of fan favorite people. One of the most iconic creatures just in pop culture history and movie history is Slimer. And I was wondering if there was at any point a conversation about bringing Slimer back or what the decision was to specifically not bring Slimer back.
This is a movie that takes place in the American West and Slimer lives in New York City.
It makes sense.
It's that simple.
Okay.
Well, and to that end, to just sort of follow up on it, was there a conversation with Rick Moranis in coming back? Because he's one of the only few members that didn't return.
This is a movie that takes place in the American West, and Rick Moranis lives on the Upper West Side.
Very fair. There we go.
So, wow, it's so simple. Moving on.
It's my answer for everything moving on in.
Ivan, I need permission to geek out with you because when I was a kid playing Ghostbusters with my brother and my father, and I had a proton pack, those movies were everything to me. And one of the things that I learned at an early age was I love magic. I love that filmmakers are magicians. And I would watch your films, and I would watch films by James Cameron, whoever I was watching at the time, and I would just be in awe and wondering how they pulled things off practically. And I know you've talked about this scene a million times, but I would love to just hear you talk about the egg scene in the first Ghostbusters and kind of your memory.
Everybody wants to know about the egg. I get questions about the egg. It's the one that everyone wants to know.
Yeah, I just your memory of how you filmed it. Yeah.
Well, we had brilliant practical effects guys. The main guy was a man named Chuck Gasper. He ran a big company that did film effects, but he'd never done a film like this. And I just, we wrote this scene, and it just seemed like a really cool way to introduce Dana to the movie, to audiences. And so we had written out a scene which is what's in the film. And I said, how can we do this so that it really works? We did a lot of stuff using compressed air. And so we had a compressed air tube at the bottom of these eggs in that carton. And that it would blow the egg out. And we made the actual countertop like a stove. Like they put elements underneath it. It was hot as hell. We had to be very careful that she wasn't going to touch it or anybody else would while we shot it. So just running camera, and it was great because she's right there. And she's dealing with the eggs, and she's such a great actress. And she just does what comes naturally when an egg suddenly, first of all, an air compression opened up the carton. It goes pop, and then various eggs, and we had numbers on them. I just conducted it like an orchestra, and it got popped. The air pressure would make the egg the yolk stuff fly out. It would hit the hot counter, and it would fry.
What do you think makes Sigourney so good at being in a science fiction film and interacting with the unknown? Because when you meet her, she's so kind of sweet and light and delightful, but she's perfect in Ghostbusters. She's perfect in the Aliens films. Yeah. What is it about her that makes her so good at interacting with the unknown?
Well, I think she's fearless. Well, the story of her coming to audition, having just done, the only movie she had done that was Year of Living Dangerously. And so I knew her, and she shows up, and she says, there's a mistake in your script. And I said, what's that? And she said, well, I should be possessed. I should be like a dog. And I can act like a dog. And then she literally climbed on my low coffee table and, went on her hands and knees and took on this position. And she started howling. And I said, okay, this woman's definitely the part. And she has a great idea. I remember calling up Harold a moment after she left, and we had been figuring out what the hell's going on the roof. We wrote the script very quickly, and auditions were probably in July, because we wrote the script in 2 weeks in June, and now we were looking for whoever Dana was going to be. And I called up Harold, and I said, look, I had this actress, Sigourney Weaver. You may have seen her in
Alien. And
yeah. No, I don't think she had done Alien
yet.
Yeah,
she had.
She had?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. And he said, oh, yeah. And I said, she had a real good idea. She said she said that she should become a dog. And and we started thinking about that, and we started thinking that was a good idea. I mean, she didn't realize that she contributed. It was only in the last 6 months that I told her that she contributed the story.
Wow.
That's this big story aspect, because we really didn't have the very last couple of reels in our heads. We knew they were going to get up on the thing and they were going to fight them. We knew we had the Marshmallow Man, because that was in Dan's original treatment. But the idea of sort of the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper being those sort of dog-like creatures that sort of are beside her really came because of the concept of conversion that then gets continued in Afterlife.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much.
The eyes will forever freak me out. The eyes will always scare me. The red eyes. Oh, God.
Well, for you, speaking of, I have to say, I love how much each of you love each other's films. It's obviously beyond a point of just father and son. It's just mutual respect as directors. I was wondering, Jason, if you could have directed any single scene from the original Ghostbusters. And Ivan, if you could have directed any moment from Afterlife, what's the moment you would have had the most fun
Oh my God,
directing?
that's a great question. It's hard because honestly, when I think about the original, it's so perfect. I don't want to direct a scene because like I don't want to be the guy who screwed up one of the scenes in the original Ghostbusters. But if I could have just chosen to relive one of the scenes and just be on set for them, oh man, I mean, like I can't help it. There's like that moment where the 4 guys up on the rooftop pull the wands and step up to Gozer just to watch the walk once.
Yeah.
And hear Bill go get him, Ray. You know, like just to be there for that moment would be pretty extraordinary.
I think "Let's show this prehistoric bitch how we do things downtown" is one of the most one of the most quotable lines in cinema. I know we're getting close to running out of time. This might be my last one, so Ivan, I have to direct it at you because one of my most favorite visual gags exists in Ghostbusters 2. And I had to know if it was scripted or how it came about. It's when the 3 men are in the courtroom and they're firing up the proton packs and they sing Do, Re, Egon. Ramus's facial expression, you know, when they double take and he sings Egon, was that scripted? Was it something Harold brought to the scene?
It wasn't scripted originally. It was really a discovery we had on the set. And a lot of good things happen in both of those movies. And I worked with those guys 3 or 4 times, so there was a comfort in our working together. And I think they all came from Second City, and they're taught to listen and to respond honestly to what's coming at them and keep it going. Never beat the last one, and never shut the scene down. And you know, coming up with giving opportunities for the talented people that you have around you. And we tried to bring that approach. I think I was innovative in terms of that usage because Second City never had a director involved. And I thought it was important not to let actors just improvise, that the improvisation was an extraordinarily important tool, but had to be focused on character and needs of the scene, you know, structural needs. And so most of the improv is really focused on plot, on story, on character and emotion, you know, and it was my job to wrangle that, I figured, as a director and just keep them on point and hold on to the good stuff. And I would often never say cut. I sort of and this was tough with 35 millimeter film because you only have 10 minutes on one roll when you have to reload. And now anyway, I'm wondering, but I think I would talk to them during the take, and I would say, okay, go back, you know, 10 seconds, and just come back, and I would push them all back physically, or so they could sort of rewind their scene. Hold on to that line, but over here, and then I would just challenge it, particularly Bill, who was really up for coming up with that great new thing on a challenge, because he hated having to do the same thing over and over again. So just to spite everybody, and because he had new people listening, he would sort of come up with stuff. Finally, it was our job in post-production to sort of link that together so that it was part of one take and that was the same scene that we were watching.
Right. I love that joke.
I believe we have 1 minute left, so I'm going to end on this. In Afterlife and also Ghostbusters 2, there's a reference to Cannibal Girls. Obviously, Mr. Reitman, that's which I love. I noticed it on the screen. So my question was, Jason, for you to include that as an Easter egg, which was really cool, and then Ivan, for you putting that in your own film in Ghostbusters 2, does that mean Ivan Reitman exists in the Ghostbusters universe?
Oh, I love that. That's a great question. You're right. That's right. My dad is a character as himself. It should say Ivan Reitman plays himself in both films.
but that Easter egg specifically meant a lot, I would imagine, right, Jason?
I mean, it meant a lot to me. I mean, obviously this is a love letter to my dad in every single way, and you can kind of feel it in every frame. It's a movie about parenting. It's about embracing your family. It also is a love letter to his career and, you know, this thing that he created that, look, it's the reason why we're here talking today. And I'm honored that I could just be there for it. I could be present for it, you know? And it was terrifying to ever consider picking up this franchise. And just in the way that my father gave me that final push when I learned to ride a bicycle, he literally gave me that final push and gave me the confidence to make this movie.
Well, we cannot wait for for more fans to see it. I was able to sit in that Comic-Con audience and
wasn't that
watch
insane?
It was unbelievable. Yeah, to feel that energy. I can't imagine. I talked to Gail Keenan earlier this morning, and he was just saying not only to be able to work on something, but to be able to bring it to an audience like that, you know. And I'm so thrilled you guys have the Thanksgiving slot, because I really think like generations of audiences are going to come together and go see it together. So we're all so excited for everybody to go see it. And we can't thank you guys enough for taking time to join us on the podcast. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Indeed.
This was
Thanks,
a pleasure. Appreciate it. We need to thank Sony Pictures Entertainment for giving us time with the Reitmans, and of course to Jason and to Ivan Reitman for taking the time to join the podcast. So the funny story that I wanted to share with everybody is we make this joke on the show a lot of sometimes you just have to ask, right? Like you can't be told no unless you ask the question. And we had Jason Reitman as a guest. He was going to be coming on the show, and he was excited to talk to us. And as we were doing the TV rotations the day before, we all ended our rooms, Kevin and Jake and myself, of saying to Jason, like, "Oh, we have a podcast. We're going to talk to you tomorrow." And he was very much like, "Cool, can't wait to talk to you guys." And then it was Kevin. I want to give Kevin credit, who was kind of just like, "Hey, would Ivan join us too?" And I was like, "I don't think so, but I'll ask." And so I texted over to our Sony rep. And they got back to me and they were like, "Let me see." And then it was a very simple thing. If they just moved us up an hour, they were like, "Hey, can you guys start an hour earlier? And if you can, then Ivan can do it." And we were like, absolutely, we can start an hour earlier. And he ended up being fantastic, as you guys. And
also, you know, in situations like, you know, like all you have to do is ask. Also, be prepared in case they say yes, because that was very much a situation where we all could have been like, "Oh shit, now we have Ivan and have no questions for Ivan."
Sure.
So, you know, if you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're hoping someone says yes, you know, maybe mentally prepare for them to say no, but also be prepared for them to say yes too, because then you gotta step up.
Also, we're going through this highly unusual period right now where we're getting people about the projects that we would really like to talk to them about. And I'm going to throw... If you want to go to YouTube, you can check out my Sylvester Stallone interview on behalf of
I want to give you props for that, because that is such a phenomenal interview. It doesn't even sound. It's such a phenomenal conversation. It's a conversation between someone who clearly knows like the film he's talking about, the series that he's talking about, the character that he's talking about, and he's talking about with the person who created it, who knows no better than anyone else on the planet. Sure. The conversations that you had with them. At any time you bring up the whole like salt mines thing, I just geek out because I think that's brilliant. But it was such a great conversation, and I can't tell you, I watched it on my phone and how I just audibly would just go, "Ooh, that's interesting. Oh, that's cool." So it's just, if you haven't seen it, it's I both was in awe and then also supremely jealous because I've never talked to Stallone before.
Well, but also, and think of this, like you guys got Daniel Craig like earlier this year for James Bond, right? Like you're getting him for a Bond movie. Sure. And at some point later this year, we hope we're going to be able to talk to Keanu Reeves about The Matrix. You know, like we're not fitting in Matrix questions.
We're not squeezing in. We're not
talking to Neo.
Yeah.
And so then to get Ivan Reitman and to only be able to ask him Ghostbusters questions is really, really something else.
Sometimes I really do feel like that Chris Farley SNL sketch. It's like, remember that time with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man? That was awesome.
That's why I love when we get those interviews too, and they talk about like the happy accidents. Yeah. You know, like stuff that we think is so choreographed or so planned. And of course, I can't think of an example of one right now, but like we talked to several directors who have come up and said like, "Oh, you won't believe it like that. That just happened that way on the day," kind of thing. And
not to keep plugging our King Richard interview, but he discussed one there where he was talking about they showed up to this set and the only place they hadn't set up was the kitchen.
Yeah.
And but they kept the actors kept being attracted to the kitchen and wanting to do the scene there, and ended up being, you guys called it like one of the best, if not the best scene in the movie.
Right.
And they were told, "Don't shoot anything in the kitchen. You can shoot anywhere else." And they were like, "Well, let's just make it work and do it." And they ended up loving it.
because he literally says, like, I can't go tell Will Smith to come out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
Will Smith likes it in here. I'm going to have to stay here and figure out a way to shoot
Will Smith is, we've all met him before. He's genuinely like one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in this business, but he's also very much a guy that, you don't tell Will Smith no.
Right.
He's earned that. I think he's earned that.
Yeah, he's absolutely.
I saw Independence Day. He's earned it.
I honestly, I really do want to live in a world where Will Smith has an Oscar.
He also has that show called Welcome to Earth, the National Geographic. And someone made the greatest joke. Someone made the greatest joke of why isn't it called Welcome to Earth? Like EARFF.
I thought
followed
it was
by
going
a punch, but every time you say it, you got to punch somebody.
What's the after show called? The talk show after the show.
Oh no, what? After Earth?
After Earth.
But Jaden's on it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Hot take. I actually like that movie.
Do you really? Hey, you're the guy.
I do. Yeah. Yeah, I am the guy.
Should have told M. Night that. All right, so let's get to the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, which is, if you're watching the YouTube channel, huge in my world. If you listen to any episodes of this podcast, it is huge.
If you've ever heard of Sean O'Connell, the name Sean O'Connell has come across your screen before. It's probably related to Spider-Man.
This is a big one, and it's big for this reason. So I'll touch on this. Obviously, they did not show the two characters that everybody believes are in the film, which is Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. And while I believe that both of them are definitely in the show or in the movie, I'm glad they didn't show them in the trailer,
like the Ghostbusters trailer.
Yeah, which kind of is giving up on that.
You mean Tobey Maguire was in the Ghostbusters trailer?
Weirdly enough, yes. I mean, it is Sony, and they're trying to integrate.
They are able to tease the idea of the multiverse by using the villains. Clearly you're getting the concept when you see Alfred Molina and you see Jamie Foxx. You know that they're villains from the other franchises. I don't think they're going to go this far and not bring in those two. And in fact, one of the fun stories that took place after the fact was fans pointing at a specific scene which shows Tom Holland's Spider-Man swinging at 3 villains. And 2 of them are going anywhere but near Tom, and makes me think that they're going after the other 2. And then there's even a scene too. Are you talking about the arm?
Well, no, I was gonna say the clip. There's in that moment that you're talking about. That features, I believe, Lizard, Sandman, and maybe Electro.
Yeah.
I don't know if they said if it's like the Brazilian trailer, like where the shot goes like an extra 3 seconds, but all of a sudden Lizard, like his head jerks like it's being punched. Therefore. Yes. There should be someone there punching him. So clearly someone's like, he's not just doing that. Clearly someone's there.
It is a mid-air.
But it also blows my mind that they can do that. That they can just we're going to just take you out of the scene. Or just,
they put it in there. I mean, that's
I guess so.
Yeah, I guess that's hide that layer. Hide that layer.
It's movies built on clicks, I guess.
Yeah. And honestly, one of the earliest examples of that is the Civil War shot of the 2 teams running at each other. Mm-hmm. And in the earliest trailers where they showed Team Iron Man running at Team Cap, Spider-Man was not standing next to Black Widow, when they're supposed to be running. And so
you're making me want to watch that movie again.
Once you knew he was in the lineup, then they insert him back in.
My takeaway from the trailer, though, I think is I'm curious how big is it going to be that from what they're not showing us. I think we're very hyper focused on Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Mm-hmm. But there's that shot where they're on the Statue of Liberty, and then there's this big rift, this big purple rift. And maybe I'm reading too much into color theory here, but red plus blue equals purple.
Ooh, okay.
And I wonder, one, on the villain standpoint, 3 or 4 villains that we've seen before doesn't feel like every universe is invading us. It feels like 3 or 4 villains are here. So I'm curious from the standpoint of there's a shot of the Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, and then there's that quick one where he flies through it is in a different suit. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if that's a different suit, the same guy, or if that's, the Green Goblin from The Amazing Spider-Man, or if that's something totally different and we're going to get a whole... Yeah, are we going to get a whole suite of characters that haven't actually been on screen because it's every universe invading? And
that's interesting. And the theory being that, we've only seen 3 universes.
They're focusing on these trailers on the ones that we know.
What if it's a universe where Tom Hanks is Green Goblin?
But I wonder, I wonder if it's going to dip into
really
into the Spider-Verse sort of method of pulling
He's
in
on a
all
scooter.
these... all these different things. My point to the color theory of that purple rift is I wonder if instead of that being villains, if that's a bunch of Spider-Man. So we're talking about Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, but what if we get a bunch of masked
What if we get
Spider-Man
a Jake
that
Gyllenhaal Spider-Man?
Like Miles Morales.
We get Miles,
Or-
yeah. Or similar
Spider-Pig.
to, I mentioned Spider-Verse because of the Oscar Isaac cameo where it's,
Sure.
you know, it's a Spider-Man that we've never seen before necessarily, or people
Sure.
aren't related to, but are there going to be so many people on screen that are like, oh, that's that weird comic, and that's something that looks totally original, and this is something like, are we going to see, you know, 20 different people? That feels like the multiverse crashing. 6, when you talk about the multiverse crashing and him saying they're all invading us, 6 and 3 Spider-Man and like 6 villains feels small potatoes, but
I do, yes, that makes sense. And that the end of that trailer, if that's your stinger, right, then you're right that should be indicating something else. Like if Doctor Strange is saying they're coming through and I can't stop them, like who is they, right?
Yeah.
Like what is he talking about?
That's such a great point.
Yeah.
And it could be, you know, he has the Peter Parker, or Tom Holland's Peter Parker has the line, I can't save them all. But there's that big moment where, but all Peter Parkers can save everyone. Like, you know, he's able to save everyone because there are 50 of them.
God, if that happens, dude, you have not. There's already so many potential moments that are going to happen in this live action version that are just going to destroy me.
Yeah.
That if something
I will
like
say,
that
I hope they
happens-
don't pull a Rise of Skywalker and just give us voices.
Oh, that'd be so disappointing.
And you're talking as someone who likes Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Even I was looking forward to seeing like Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan and
Right.
Did the Defoe thing in the trailer give you that sense? Because it gave me that sense of like,
is
Defoe in it, or is a costume in it and Defoe has a voice in
I
it?
bet Defoe is in it. I think
hope
he
so.
is.
I wonder.
But how great is it? Like we aired the clip that we aired on our show this morning was the clip with his little mini monologue about choice and wanting everything, and it's just the graveliness of his. Oh, he just has one of the great voices. It's just such a great actor.
It's tremendous. And so I've heard 2 theories. If you guys want to hear them, do you want to hear them?
Yeah.
One is there's a shot from the trailer of Alfred Molina's arms sort of taking on the red. They're sort of absorbing the red and the yellow and almost building into something bigger. And I've been hearing along the lines of there are rumors that Ock is going to essentially destroy the Iron Spider suit, which is what's going to lead to Tom Holland having to put together the integrated suit that he's wearing during the Statue of Liberty, which is some elements of the gold from the Iron Spider, but then other fabric elements.
Is that the gold and
like
black
spells apparently, right?
Yeah, there was like the rings.
I think Doctor Strange does give him something to use in order to be able to go around and round up the villains.
That's sick. I'm sorry, it just sounds like D&D comic book madness. I love it.
A friend of mine who said that when Ock absorbs the Stark tech, that it might actually disrupt the inhibitor that is preventing him from controlling the arms.
To me, it looked like when he's in that cell, that cell, I thought he had like Spider-Man, Iron Man gadgetry around though. It looked like they were like closing the claws and were like had him captured. Like it looked like it had specifically was like handcuffing him. I don't know how you would describe that, but it looked like it wasn't a part of the suit. It looked like it was containing him.
But if it's also disrupting the inhibitor that's preventing him from controlling the arms, he could be good. He could be helpful to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because there are not elements in the trailer outside of the bridge fight when they first fight where he's fighting Dr. Octopus anymore. Yeah. So Dr. Octopus might be doing that. There's also there's a shot of Tom Holland, which hasn't shown up anywhere else, that takes place later in the snow where he's walking down a street and Zendaya is in a store, and it's theoretically he's going to the store to
wait, this is a behind the scenes production shot or in the trailer?
Yes. No. It has not shown up in any of the trailers. And it was
this was like 2 years ago. Didn't this come out?
Yeah, I seem to remember seeing this. Yeah.
And it feeds into an ending bit of the movie that I've heard, which is that they are eventually going to get around to finally succeeding in conducting the spell the right way. And that by the end of this movie, no one's going to remember that he is Spider-Man. And so he'll be free to operate freely without all of this stuff.
Does that bum you out?
No, I want that to happen. I think it would be tremendous if he had a 3-film arc where he got to interact with all the Marvel characters and do all the MCU stuff we got to see him do. But then by the end of it, it's almost like Spider-Man Begins, right? Like now he's
so
Spider-Man.
You mean no one knows and he doesn't even tell whoever the Avengers are?
Correct. Yeah.
Ooh.
It's just
And he's
him
in
with the secret
Spider-Man's
identity
universe.
again. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Does it?
So we'll
Okay.
see.
But
I think
okay.
my point being, I think the movie still has a lot of really big swings to make.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. Like I said, I think that if it's with how much they're giving us, I don't feel like, and maybe that's just because so much of it has been discussed and spoiled, and maybe that's our fault.
Sure.
The audience, I mean, not us specifically, but Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield kind of feel like small reveals in the grand scheme of like what you can do with the multiverse.
All right. There's an animated film coming to Netflix this week called Extinct, which none of us have seen, I don't believe.
Didn't know it existed until today.
Okay.
Being honest.
Joaquin Phoenix is in a black and white film directed by Mike Mills, and it's called Come On, Come On. I'm going to briefly talk about this one, not a full-on review, but a reaction. I was able to see it at the Savannah Film Festival, and I was highly, highly anticipating it because of its subject matter. Joaquin plays a brother or an uncle who is recruited by his sister to basically babysit her kid because of a medical emergency that she has to go attend to, not to herself, but to her ex-husband. And the longer that Joaquin is with the kid, he has to also juggle his work responsibilities and also deal with this precocious child. And it is, I really disliked it. And I thought it was going to be incredibly sweet and Joaquin would figure out, things about himself and the kid. But it's one of those, and I'm going to sound like an old man for saying this, but like these millennial, tell me how you feel about everything type things where you can't discipline the kid. He has to like the boy whenever he has a rough spell, he'll come pretend to be an orphan from the 1800s, and he'll say to his mom like,
so wait, is he raising Daniel Day-Lewis, like the greatest actor of all time?
It's a little bit like pint-sized Daniel Day-Lewis. And so Joaquin will look at the kid and they'll be like, well, this is dumb, like I'm not going to play along with this. And the mom's like, no, you have to, because if you don't, it's really going to upset his internal balance. And it is
so
Northern California.
Joaquin's character is conflicting with what you're conflicting with, though, right?
Not as much. Like, yes, at first he's like, this is a little bit weird, but then he very quickly turns around to like, well, this is just parenting, I guess. And so they go with it. And by the end of it, he's fully immersed in it, of just like, can we have a conversation now? Is it okay if we talk about our feelings? I would like you to know what I was thinking at this particular time. And I was just like, this. So it didn't
sounds
necessarily work for me. And I like Joaquin. He's good in it. This is just to give you an idea. Joaquin's job is that he goes around interviewing children for a documentary series about their feelings. How do you feel about potentially having to one day become a leader? What are some of your concerns about what politicians are doing for your future? And he'll jet off to like New York or New Orleans because they got like access to a fresh crop of kids. And so he just picks up and goes. And I'm like, not quite sure that the guy who's interviewing children for some PBS documentary has the resources to just shoot off. But that's not important to the movie. The movie just wants you to buy into their relationship, which I did not. So it is called Come On, Come On. And check it out if you like Mike Mills. I did get to see Tick, Tick, Boom.
Oh,
which
I'm so excited to see it.
At the moment, it shot up to my number one movie of the year.
Do you think it's going to stick there?
I don't know. Here's how I felt watching.
So wait,
Tick,
are your
Tick,
number
Boom.
one and number two movies of the year going to star Andrew Garfield?
Possible. Yes, it's very possible.
Interesting.
You loved Tammy Faye that much?
I had just seen Belfast. You guys know how much I love Belfast. Belfast was a 5-star film.
Would you say you have an everlasting love for Belfast?
Without a doubt, I do. But this movie is so good, and Andrew Garfield is so talented that it's one of those films where it made me angry watching it because he shouldn't be that talented, right? Like, he's already incredibly handsome and incredibly charming, and then he starts singing from the get-go, like in one of the opening moments, and I was just like, man, fuck you. Honestly, like, enough. Is
and
there
he's
anything
Spider-Man.
you can't do? And he's Spider-Man. So I knew nothing about the show. I know Jonathan Larson wrote Rent, and the music is very Rent-ish in that it's a lot of driving sort of rock opera, and very smart lyrics, very clever lyrics. But you learn over the course of this movie that he was working on a musical production for several years, and it's called, I want to say Suspiria, but it's not Suspiria, but it's something like that. And it was a high concept, like science fiction musical. And he is trying to get it in front of the right people, and he has an agent who doesn't necessarily help him. And it's all about him sort of putting that show together. And after he is able to get through that and it doesn't catch on, someone turns around to him and says, essentially, for the next one, you should write something that's really personal to you. And that's when he stops first, because at first he's been immersed in just making this happen. And that's when he stops and looks around how many of his friends are being affected by the AIDS crisis, essentially. So he starts to write the music for Rent. But in between this, what is the name? I wish I knew the name of the musical. It's not Suspiria. Maybe Gabe can look it up while I'm talking about this. In between writing that and Rent, he wrote Tick, Tick, Boom, which is about him struggling to write a musical. And that's what this musical is. But it says so many brilliant, brilliant things about creative people, and how at almost every given moment they are looking at the normal 9-to-5 life and thinking like, why am I not doing that? I'm an idiot. Why am I struggling to pay the rent? Why am I living in an apartment with 5 other people to step over them and to take a shower because our tub is in the kitchen? Why can't I just be a normal person? But they're not capable of doing that. And there's so many brilliant ways that it goes through that push and pull of like, should I stop? Should I keep going? There are times when Bradley Whitford in this
I love
Tick, Tick, Boom plays Stephen Sondheim. And apparently Sondheim loved Jonathan Larson and ran into him at earlier workshops and really was encouraging him along. And after the play that he put on that kind of did well, but not well enough to get across, like Sondheim was the one who sent him a voicemail message and was like, keep going. You definitely have it. Don't give up, sort of thing. And Garfield just plays it beautifully. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, as a first-time director, is incredibly creative.
I was going to ask you how his direction is. It
is the best of the musicals that we've seen this year. Obviously, we still have West Side Story coming. But it's a Broadway musical or an off-Broadway musical adaptation done by someone in Lin-Manuel Miranda who knows every fiber of Broadway musicals and how they should be told. And so when he takes you on stage, it's from the perfect angle. It's when he takes you off stage and into the real world, but still uses the music. It's the perfect angles. The cast is incredible. Garfield, it's honestly, he's never been better. And it's just the more we watched it, like every time another number ended, Michelle and I looked at each other like, honestly, both of us were just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this can't be this good.
And you saw it at home.
To watch it at home, and
that's incredible.
Hate that I watched it at home. And me, I'm old. Like, I start something at 8 and like a half an hour into it, I'm like, maybe I'll wait, and finish it tomorrow. And we started it pretty late and couldn't turn it off.
Wow.
And it was the night that you and I had the Monday Night Football game too. And I wanted nothing more than to switch over and watch the Monday Night Football game. But I couldn't turn it off. I was enamored with it. So it's...
See, you don't even deserve to have won.
It's terrific. So
everyone... I couldn't find the musical I might have. Is it called Away We Go?
No. It's like a one-word S title.
That he actually wrote, that Jonathan Larson actually wrote between...
He wrote it, and he never got it. He got it, like, staged once or twice, but it never took off.
Okay, that's why I'm having a hard time finding it.
I'll look it up. Jakey, start talking about King Richard.
Superbia?
That's probably it. Superbia, yes.
Okay.
And it's great. The music in it is really great, but it's very, very prescient.
Futuristic dystopian original music Superbia?
Yes, that is definitely it. And it predicted back in the 1980s or 90s, I forget the year that this took place, that eventually we would be a society that was completely obsessed with our look and how we were portrayed via technology. It essentially like predicted social media ahead of time.
Yeah.
And the feedback he got from everybody was like, the music's great, the lyrics are great, but no tourists from the Midwest are going to come and want to pay $50 to watch your musical about robots and laser guns. And he's like, it's not about that. It's about us as a culture and how we look at ourselves. And people weren't getting it. So, but it's delightful. It's delightful. The music is incredible. And again, Garfield is so talented. He makes me angry. So, King Richard, Jakey, where are you at with King Richard?
Really, honestly, really loved King Richard. I think I approached it like many people did, which is, why are we telling the story of Venus and Serena through the eyes of their father?
Mm-hmm.
But I will say I was really surprised to see how big of a role he played, like to the point where he kind of had their future, their plan. It sounds harsh to say decided for them, but since before they were born, he had decided at least the degree of success that they were going to have. And not just, I want them to do well in this, and then they turned out to be the best. He said, no, they're going to be the best. And then they were the best. It's truly a phenomenal story. I thought Will Smith's performance, Will Smith is one of those guys that falls into that category of, he's just so famous and we know him so much outside of his roles that it's hard for him to make us forget who he is. I thought he did it. To me, he completely disappeared into the role of Richard Williams.
I put it on a Pursuit of Happiness level.
Yes.
Where I really saw that father.
Yeah.
I know it was Will Smith, but I really saw the father.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a really crowd pleasing film. I could see it doing really well with people that see it. I could see it being one of those like A+ cinema score ratings. I think the only thing that really kind of surprised me is I just didn't know how far into the story we were going to go. And therefore, I didn't know what the runtime of the film was. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, I think it's like 220.
Yeah,
which is pretty heavy for a movie like that. And there are a couple of moments where I just sort of thought, okay, like this is where it's, because obviously like it's not going to go into their adulthood. So it's like, okay, at what point of their childhood do you stop? Right. And there would be these beats where I would go, okay, here we go. This is it. This is the end of the movie. I've been here for, hour 40. I've been here hour 50. And I go, oh no, there was even a moment before the big final tennis match starts. Right. That in my mind, I thought, I bet the movie stops right before the tennis match starts. Okay. And then they start playing tennis. I was like, oh no, okay, we're gonna watch them play tennis. And so I think maybe it wasn't so much that it was detrimental, but it was just sort of like, how long is this movie? It felt like to the point where I was like, this movie's longer than I thought it was going to be. I think if I knew maybe going in, or if I were to rewatch it again, it wouldn't be a big deal. But it kind of threw me off as to, because normally movies like that are not that long. But I thought the story was tremendous. I thought the two, Sanaya and Demi Singleton, were absolutely incredible as Venus and Serena. They're incredible. Will Smith is unbelievable. A lot of supporting cast members. I'm blanking on the woman's name who plays their mother, but her role is just as important, if not more so, than Richard's, and her performance was incredible. I wouldn't be surprised if she got an Oscar nomination.
Is it Anjanou Ellis?
Yes, she was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. And I really, really was very, very pleasantly surprised with this film.
There's a terrific relationship between the girls. That's just a sisterly relationship amongst all the Williams sisters, which I know that Ronaldo said was super important for them to get right on camera. And one of the most fascinating aspects of this movie is how much it doesn't focus. It's Venus's story, essentially. And it very easily could have been Serena's story. And there's a moment towards the end where where Richard even says to her, I know this has been tough, and it's been a lot of Venus, but your turn is coming. And it's not like they were saying like King Richard 2.
But there could be. They're like not saying that there will be.
Sean, please. It would be called King Richard II.
Oh my God! Yes.
Yeah, you could easily do that.
Wow.
But in a way, in the context of this movie, it was also very effective to see the position that Serena was put into, of having to, just because her sister was older, was going to go through it first. And, it does the typical biopic things at the end with the title cards of just like, here's what they went on to accomplish. and you were like, and then Serena became the
which
best
I love, by the way. I love that
in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah. Because it puts the whole movie into context, into perspective.
Well, and then it does the footage. It has actual footage of stuff that was shot, and you realize just how accurate all of it is. The word you hit that was totally correct is crowd pleaser. Like I just think people are going to go check this movie out and really, really dig it. And so
this is a movie I'm concerned. My biggest concern about this movie is that I think this could very much be a movie that is impacted by HBO Max. Because I could see a lot of people saying, well, like a lot of people, like with Ghostbusters, they don't have a choice. But with people at home, they might go, well, it's on HBO Max, so we don't really need to go out and see it in theaters.
Sure.
But this is the kind of movie you would say is more important that people see it than that they see it on the biggest screen possible, right?
I think Warner Brothers would disagree.
It's an awards play. Like if it's around for a while and it does okay in that aspect, then I think that would be okay. Because they're going to get that Beyonce original song, which is playing over the credits. That's getting an Oscar. Wow. Yeah. She's got a song at the end. And Smith, as far as we know, is going to
I know we're talking Oscars for the upcoming bonus episode, but do we want to call... premium. Do we want to call Will Smith for a Best Actor nomination? I'd say that's pretty safe.
I think so.
Yeah, I'd say it's a solid.
I would say he and Cumberbatch. And...
for his role in Spider-Man No Way Home. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, man, you really is. Yeah. Garfield?
And Garfield. Those would be my three at the moment right now. I'd have to think about what else is kind of out there, but those would be the big three.
Do you know how they're pushing Belfast? Are they pushing the kid for actor and Jamie for supporting?
Do not know.
Was that the film that you called out, Sean, for the SAG? You thought the ensemble should?
No, Gucci. I said
Gucci. That's what
does Driver get in? Is it good?
I don't know.
I think in a lesser year, maybe.
I think Driver's the least showy of them all.
Yeah.
I think it's Leto and Gaga.
Yeah. But
and
Driver's
probably
fantastic.
And Pacino.
I love this Pacino resurgence.
He's so good. He's so good in it. Yeah. Oh, he's unbelievable. He's effortlessly good. But we're not talking about Gucci.
He's Pacino.
Oh, my God.
Do you guys see that red carpet clip of... and also, whoever shouted that, I guess they were taking photos of the cast, and whatever person shouted this, like, oh my God, who are you? Someone, like, they're all, it's the bright flashes and all that sort of stuff, and Pacino has the sunglasses on, he's Pacino. And someone said, like, hey, Al, take your sunglasses off. And, like, he does oblige and takes it, but clearly, like, all the flashes are hurting his eyes.
Yeah.
And Lady Gaga goes, don't ask him to take it. He's Al Pacino.
Al Pacino
and then everyone was kind of like, yeah, but I was just like, who yells at Al Pacino, hey, take your glasses off? Like, let the man do what he wants. He's Al Pacino.
Good point. Gabriel, start us off with Ghostbusters Afterlife. Where are you at with the...
Oh, yes, Gabe gets to do this. I'm so excited.
I did see this one. I did see this one. I really, really enjoyed it. I will give some context for where I fall on the Ghostbusters fandom. I've always enjoyed Ghostbusters. I watched them a handful of times when I was a kid, but I never fell in love with them in the way that a lot of people do. There's something about the tone of it. There's just something about it that I never fell in love with. It's not something that I look back with like a ton of nostalgia. I don't ever really go back and rewatch them. I enjoyed them, but there's always been something about the tone or the world that, like, off-putting might not be the right word for it, but it never sunk in. It never became like that feels like for a lot of people that's like a comfort movie. It's like a thing that they loved so much when they were younger that they go back to. I never hit that wavelength for it. With that said, I think that's why I wouldn't say I love this movie, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I think that Ghostbusters fans will like it. The first half of it, first two acts of it, I really dug because of the Amblin nature of it. It starts out like a 2021 style, visually 2021 Amblin picture. Has that feel. I felt that immediately with the way that the kids discover the things, and the way everything kind of unfolds feels like an Amblin film. And anytime that tone hits, I'm like, that's something that I love, that hits me on a deep level. So the first couple acts really sang for me. And then the third act becomes Ghostbusters. The third act becomes, this is the Ghostbusters you know and love. Big practical sets, big, I believe, practical monsters when they can. At least I bought that they seem to be.
At least for a good portion of like the Walmart scene, which I hate.
The Walmart scene
but
there's I mean, obviously the ghosts you see in the trailer and stuff are CGI, but there's a lot of big practical things that look like big styrofoam 80s sets.
Yeah.
Which is cool, which I enjoyed, but again, it's that's the thing that I go, oh, this is fun, this is this tone, but it's not something that hits me in the way that like Amblin does. So I didn't fall in love with it, but I love parts about it.
You are so right. There is a definitive, you can point at the line where it shifts away from Jason Reitman was making his take on a Ghostbusters movie to now it's I'm making a Ghostbuster. Yes, you can definitely see that.
Which I don't think was a bad choice. I think that if you love, maybe you guys will speak to this. I think if you love Ghostbusters, I think that could really work, where it gets you in with the more modern feel at the start, and it gets you in with the tried and true Amblin, technique. And then it delivers, I think, on the big moments that it needs to at the end of being a Ghostbusters movie, which I think is what Ghostbusters fans have always wanted. So I don't criticize that approach at all. I don't think. Mckenna Grace is, I mean, what are we witnessing? She is so good. It's not just that, oh, this is a great character and she's great. And, she's like this young kid actress. And it's like, sometimes kids, they're adorable and they play this adorable part and it all works. She is making choices. Like you are seeing her make choices as a performer that you don't get from, every actor at any level. And the fact that she took this character who could very easily be a stereotypical nerdy kind of throwaway character, not throwaway, but you kind of go like, oh, okay, I see this sort of the things you're filling in here, the way you're coloring in the lines. And she makes some incredibly, and to give Jason Reitman credit as well as the guy directing her, incredibly fresh choices and interesting decisions, and feels like a unique character. Doesn't just feel like a stereotypical kind of nerd. And she gives some of the best lines in the whole movie.
Here's the thing.
Fantastic.
She effortlessly holds her own opposite Paul Rudd. Like,
100%.
Yeah. And that's 100%. Not easy to do, right? Like they make each other funnier.
She's so good. And so she was a standout for me of, she always is. I feel like every time it's kind of insane to see the way that she's progressed and all the things that she's been able to be a part of. And in this, I was just blown away by how great she was, because she does have to carry so much of, there are so many scenes that are about her, or about her character sort of interacting with the story of the Ghostbusters. And she nails it. So
Jakey, where are you at?
So I will say I was born in the late 80s, therefore I was not really around when like the Ghostbusters mania was happening. For me growing up, I had the movies on VHS and loved the movies, but they were kind of, when you're a kid and a movie came out 10 years before, before you're watching it, it's an old movie. Like to me, Ghostbusters was always like an old movie, even though like it came out 4 years before I was born. But that being said, I still loved it. As a kid, I had toys and I did the whole deal. I very much love this film. The first two acts, I will say, I think we all sort of agree that there is a moment where it shifts. The first 100%. Two acts, I thought like, is this like a top 10 of the year movie for me? Yeah. I just like, and you absolutely nailed it in the whole Amblin touch. I'm a sucker for films under that Amblin umbrella that feel like they're under that Amblin umbrella. The third act, it's Reitman just shoving all of his chips in and going, okay, let's go. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. And a lot of it worked for me. I will say, I don't think it was as much of a step down for me as it was for you guys. And then when it hits sort of the emotional nostalgia beats, whenever those moments, whenever the players you want to see come up to bat, it really worked for me. There was a moment where I think I audibly let out like a and just like the tears came. Everything about the I guess the end of the final act really worked for me. Okay. It just you call it cheap or whatever you want, but I know people love to knock like nostalgia, but you do. There's a lot of it, and a lot of the same reason that like Rise of Skywalker worked for me a lot. Like, is it fan service? Absolutely, but I'm a fan. and everything that he did worked for me.
I think people knock that because that's like the business model of Disney, and so maybe it's oversaturated. But nostalgia is a feeling, Nostalgia is an emotion. It's just like anything else. It's all about manipulating your emotions. So I don't think it's a invalid.
Sure. The danger of nostalgia, and longtime listener of the show, Chase, and one of my buddies brought this up. And what's funny is that Mckenna Grace brought this up in our interview, because I asked Mckenna Grace was paired with Finn Wolfhard. And I said, this is a big deal for someone like me who grew up watching these movies, and now it's all kind of coming back. And so there's a lot of stuff that I grew up with that's coming back. And I asked them, I said, what did you guys grow up with that you think might come back in 30 years? And they said, we got to be honest with you, like everything that's coming out when we're kids is all nostalgia based from basically your generation.
Yeah.
She was like, basically they implied like you had Jurassic Park and you had Ghostbusters and you had Star Wars and all that, and all that's coming back for you and Grace. She goes like, and I think what did she say? Like what am I going to have in 30 years? Like the cast of Lady Bird gets back together. She's like, I don't really have.
Sounds pretty great.
And I was like,
it's a great cast.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But that is an interesting point, isn't it? Like what does this generation, like if we're
Fortnite.
taking advantage of
they have Fortnite.
I don't know what that means.
How many Oscars is the movie going to win that star McKenna Grace and Jacob Tremblay in 20 years?
Oh my God.
And we get him for this big Oscar winning role when he's like later in his career on our podcast, and we go like, so will you finally tell us about do you tell us about that body on Dr. Sleep?
And he's like, I actually had to go to therapy for years after that.
I hate Mike Flanagan. So I'll go last, and I'll say that there are some. I'm going to echo everything that the guys said about the first two acts. I think they work incredibly well. I think it is a Ghostbusters movie in tone that is recapturing everything that the first two movies did, but with different people. I do think it leans a little bit heavily on hey, remember this? Hey, remember this? But not too bad. Like when the ghost traps come up or when the proton packs come up. And I did get to watch it in that New York Comic-Con audience, and it was too much in that like there were applause breaks for everything
because you're in that audience
for Ghostbusters. Yeah. But
it's like when we saw Uncut Gems at TIFF, we were just in the middle of it.
Exactly. Everything that happened, we were just like, yeah. But
like Sandler gets shot in the head and you guys are applauding. Like,
well, no, when there is a real moment where I've told this on this show before as a tangent of all tangents, but where when Kevin Garnett makes the basket at the big in the climax of the movie, spoilers for Uncut Gems and a thing that happened in real life. Sean goes, yes, in the crowded theater. So yeah, I mean, it happened.
Yes, degenerate gambling. I'm very familiar with it.
Continue.
But I mean, it's hard to talk about this because without being able to get into any kind of spoilers, there are controversial choices that are made at the end of this movie that I cannot wait to see the discourse on. And normally I hate the discourse and want nothing to do with it, but I am going to be fascinated to see how people react to a couple of the big choices that happened in the final act. And in this case, I'm just going to sit back and absorb everybody's reactions to them. And we'll see. I will say that it didn't necessarily work for me, and it was a not a huge red flag, but a big enough red flag that I was a little bit bothered by it. So
Do we want to take like 5 behind a spoiler wall and discuss? Because I think we were texting about the specifics that we want to, and it's a pretty quick discussion. I think we can make that work.
If we can do that, yeah. So how do we do this?
I will let the audience know now. We are about to get into spoilers. Check the show notes. If you're on YouTube, it'll be spaced out on the little player. We're going to talk about spoilers briefly for Ghostbusters. Catch us on the other side where we'll get right into the blend game.
You're such a good producer.
So, I mean, Ghost Egon is a problem for me. And the Ghost Egon is a problem for me because I thought that the movie did a strong job conveying his communicating presence to McKenna Grace all the way through. And it's not only that, but it is how quickly it gets resolved of him being an absentee father for Carrie Coon's character. That just because he had a montage board of old photos, that all is forgiven.
Well, I thought it was the realization that he was saving the world.
Okay, maybe.
The montage was like I think that was like a punctuation of like, oh, he cared. Emotionally, he was there. Okay. And then she finds out, especially after she gets possessed, like, oh, the world was ending and he was just trying to keep me and the family safe. but everyone thought he was crazy. I bought that. For me, what didn't work about Ghost Egon, which is unfortunate because it's this weird. I don't know how to fix it without putting him in the movie less. Yeah. Which feels like a disservice to honoring him in the first place.
Sure.
Because to me, the only issue was obviously he could not speak in the role. So he's just visually there. And I thought the visuals were great. I thought it looked really great. And everything he does is very sweet. But it's because it goes on so long and he doesn't speak. And you assume, I don't know if they've established in the Ghostbusters, I believe ghosts talk, or can talk.
I can't think of any examples of them talking in either of the two movies.
Isn't technically the villain from the second one, doesn't he talk whenever he's like
Vigo?
coming out?
Vigo
or whatever?
Interesting. It's been I feel like I've seen two so little.
Point being, someone speaks for Vigo.
Okay, well, regardless of that, I guess maybe I give it a pass of like, oh, that's the established universe. Regardless of that being the way, it does feel, it goes from one shot of him reacting to someone to another shot to another, and you're like, okay, and then it just keeps going. You're like, okay, he would say something here.
Yes.
Like he has to say something here. And the fact that he doesn't, we know that he can't, and that it would probably be in poor taste to get like a voice actor or someone to do an impression. But to me, the solution that I pitched to you guys in the text thread was to just cut down the things that he does. I think that like the hug
that's fair
with Carrie Coon's character has to happen. That's the payoff of that whole story arc.
Moment. Tell me you didn't get chills when Mckenna Grace is struggling and fighting and can't, and then all of a sudden his arms wrap around. Like I'm getting chills right now. To me, that is worth.
That's great.
The 2 or 3 shots that, maybe those went into. But I think maybe just my knowledge of what the situation was gave it a pass. It was just sort of like.
On a second rewatch, because I've been lucky enough to see it twice. And I will say that the entirety of the movie is building toward her being the one to have the power to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, she's figured out every step of the way what needs to be done. And I almost think that with his hand on her shoulder, potentially, she should have been the 4th Ghostbuster standing next to them. Like that's the theme of the movie of like the fact that she's the next generation. And I would have been okay if they let her be the one who, she figures out the trap. She lures him to the house, and if she's the one who springs it, I'm okay with all that.
I saw it more as they're all the kids are the new Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
That's what I saw it as. Those are the 4 new Ghostbusters. But like, I think the old guy, we were touching on this before we got to spoilers, that the Ghostbusters are back. That was the sense I got. So I didn't feel like she needed to be the one. I felt like she had a really poignant moment. To your point, I don't necessarily believe in like pitching like this is what I would have done criticism of films, because, I don't know, it is what it is. But I do think in that instance, for me, what would have worked is if they had cut down some of the interactions that Egon has, and it would have been the great moment of him helping her. It would have been the great moment of the Ghostbusters looking at him and reacting to him, because that was fine. And it was like he didn't need to speak in that, but it was the fact that like 3 or 4 people came up to him and like interacted with him, and I get the emotional reasons of it because it's his grandkids. I felt like they should have just taken that out and just had 3 moments. One, the most important being Carrie Coon kind of.
But let me also level this criticism.
Go ahead.
Because I used this term in our text chain recently, and you guys pushed back on it, where I said he botched the arrival of the original guys. Someone said to me, and I believe this, that they only had the original guys for like 1 day to shoot.
It looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And if the movie had maybe more time with them, and that's just a reality of the shoot potentially, it goes from the phone call in the prison to they're just there, and you have to assume that behind the scenes, there's a lot of legwork that went into Dan Aykroyd patching up relationships with all these guys, getting them their equipment, and then getting to wherever Midwest state that they are.
Yeah.
And fine, you just overlook it because they show up. But I guess I would have liked just a little more, build up to them kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It worked for me. I didn't have, it's felt a part of the issue. I don't even want to call it an issue. That whole moment in the film is very much the Ghostbusters sort of tone and stuff that I say, like, I just don't love. That doesn't really hit me. And a part of that is like them just kind of walking onto this little set. But that feels very much like a Ghostbusters thing of them just walking onto this little set, and it's this set piece happens. I felt like maybe that could have been a bigger thing. Like maybe that could have been a more interesting than just literally walking up. Yeah. But the logistics of it, I didn't feel like I needed more. But again, I'm not a diehard Ghostbusters fan who has all this expectation. So
okay, I'm just kind of thinking about this in the moment. You know, what would have been cool in the existence of the movie as it was. I would have liked to seen them show up at the moment in Gozer's tower, when McKenna Grace is kind of confronting them. Like have them show up there, and then be from that point of the movie on, kind of thing. Sure. Give us a little more time with them.
You ain't getting Bill Murray for that long.
I was gonna say, but I do understand
unless Wes Anderson directs Ghostbusters 4.
Did you watch, Sean? Did you watch the both end credit scenes?
Yes. Yeah. With Ernie Hudson buying the fire station.
Yeah, that one I almost missed it because and
Sigourney.
Yeah.
The Sigourney and Bill scene feels like it was supposed to be earlier in the movie. I think you were supposed to see that Bill is around, almost like Dan got a scene on the phone.
Yeah. It did surprise me that like you get Sigourney back and make her a post-credit scene that like in theory a lot of people will miss, because while people are trained for post-credit scenes for Marvel, I don't think a lot of people are trained.
But she was shooting 5 Avatar movies probably during this.
I didn't know. Like Sean, did you know that there were post-credit scenes for Resident Evil? Like I was getting up and like walking out, and then all of a sudden they started playing, and I was like, oh shit, there's post-credit scenes.
I had no idea. No.
Yeah.
There should be a warning at the beginning of every movie, like stay to the end. Kind of thing.
Or you should watch the credits. I guess there's an argument for that, but you know.
All right.
There's an argument for I got shit to do, Gabe.
I agree. I also got up and left, and the person there was like, oh, there's another one. And I was like, oh.
I swear to God, there's a whole other dance sequence in West Side Story. I'm like, what the hell?
Before we leave spoilers, there's going to be another one? Is that kind of what they were trying to give us?
Well, Ernie Hudson told me, I interviewed him recently, and he told me that they're writing, he said they're writing Ghostbusters 4.
I'm in. Like I said, I really liked it. I wish.
Yeah.
My biggest criticism is I wish that this had come out in the summer, because it felt like such a great summertime blockbuster. And it was originally supposed to come out in
But it feels like
July.
A fall movie, though, doesn't it?
No, it's set in the summer. To me, it felt like
Is it set in the summer?
Yeah, because
it's the summer school. You're right.
To me, it felt like a summer Amblin kids in a small town.
Yeah. And if they pass the pack over to McKenna Grace, I'm totally fine with that. Like I think that's okay.
All the kids were great. Even even his like girlfriend who's kind of barely in it, she was fun. Like she was fun in what she had. She didn't have much to do.
Podcast is the type of kid character who I normally don't like.
Yeah.
But I thought that kid was great.
He nailed it every time that he had a little.
I was prepared to not like that character because I was like, oh god, here we. It's like here's the precocious little quirky little side character, and I was like, oh no, I like you.
He gets better and better.
There are 1 or 2 elements in the movie where, and this is nitpicking, and it's still spoilery. I'm going to mention this. Where they open up the trap. You know, Paul Rudd hooks it up to the bus battery, and they open up the trap, and they very clearly see a gigantic ghost that then flies off, right? And in the next scene, Paul Rudd's just driving him back home to the house, and there's no mention of it at all whatsoever. Like he's just like
the wolf, like the wolf ghost.
Yeah, it's like a gigantic monster ghost that comes busting out of the trap and flies off. And then the next scene, they're just like, all right, I guess I'll bring you home now. Like there were elements of that where I was just like, I wonder if this got tinkered with a little bit.
Interesting.
You know? Like,
I don't know. It didn't stand out to me. They had the great, they show his like windshields blown out, which was a fun little bit.
Yes.
But yeah.
Interesting.
And there is that terrific shot, which we talked about in the interview of, when they are capturing the ghost for the first time, and they're racing along the dirt road, and they've got the ghost in the beam, and
it's beautifully shot.
Is driving it is beautifully shot. Yeah.
When Finn takes the Ecto-1 through the wheat or that was beautiful. What would you guys give it? I know Gabe, I know you're not a big fan of the out of 5. But
this will be very arbitrary. I guess I would give it like a 4.
Okay.
There's nothing about it that I would say I hated, like super disliked, but 4.
I would go 4 as well.
I'd probably like a 3.5. But I liked it. I definitely liked it.
Yeah.
So if we're Rotten Tomatoes, America thinks we're giving it 100%.
What is it at? Is it at?
Oh, that's a good question.
You look?
I would recommend it though to the Rotten Tomatoesification of it. If I was giving a binary,
it's lower than I thought it would be.
Are you have it up?
Yeah. What would you guys predict it is right now? Is it 92 reviews?
Is it? It's only critic reviews right now, right? Or do they have any audience reviews?
Correct.
60.
I would have thought like 72.
66. So split the difference.
Oh.
I would have thought it would have been higher.
No, we don't like it.
No,
we don't
not
like things anymore.
You know, if you hadn't said that, maybe I would have put it in the 80s.
Yeah, because I just felt like, basically, it's sort of the flaw of Rotten Tomatoes where, like, even if you just like it, it's fresh. I would have thought there would have been enough critics that, like, would have just liked it enough.
Yeah.
We just don't like things anymore.
Yeah. People are
all
mean.
right. Well, our blend game is Ivan Reitman blend. And so I picked Ghostbusters. Did anybody not pick Ghostbusters? Oh, you
did not pick Ghostbusters.
You did not. Well, then I'll go first.
He picked Ghostbusters 2.
So Ghostbusters
Sean, or Jake, did you pick Ghostbusters?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you guys both picked Ghostbusters.
Okay. It's adorable to me that you guys talk about not being born when Ghostbusters came out or whatever it was, because
don't forget what you said in this podcast.
I'm old.
You're old.
Definitely old. This was one of those movies, I think I was in 5th grade when it came out.
Perfect age.
Where my parents didn't want me to see it. But on the school bus, everyone was quoting it like incessantly. Like every Bill Murray joke, every Dan Aykroyd joke, they were just like driven into the ground. And the more you heard it, the more it drove you nuts that you couldn't go see it. Like I begged my mom, like, please, can we go see Ghostbusters? But like she knew those guys from like Stripes and Trading Places. Yeah. And so she was like, no, you're not going to go see that movie. And, then it has an oral sex joke in it. It has like things that, but it was like, you guys don't understand how big that movie was. It was just because it was the song, and it was the video being on MTV constantly.
And it was big for like more than a decade, right? Like it like animated series, toys, and all that stuff. Didn't all that last for years beyond the films itself?
And even like I think so, Ghostbusters I think is 84, and then the sequel was 89. So it's like it was a while in between those two coming out. And so it was just enormous, and it's one of those things where like it came along at the right time.
Perfect. Timing.
It was a summer movie.
We talk about like going into movies with expectations, but there's something we will never have again at that age of the social pressure of everyone else. Like this story, specifically what you're talking about of why that age is perfect. The social pressure of everyone else being excited about it and having the authorities telling you that you can't watch it gives a movie like a bit of magic that you can't put in a trailer, And you just fall in love with those things.
But like everything about it in the moment worked. Like the Stay Puft joke worked, and Rick Moranis was huge, so to have him in like a supporting part. Sigourney Weaver was huge. Like that cast at the time was enormous. It was enormous. And it just was so funny. It just played so well. And it's one of those deals where it's fun to listen to them talk about the making of it, because they went into it not really knowing 100% how it was going to work. But then in the moment of them shooting it, Bill Murray kind of turned to Aykroyd and he's like, oh, I think we actually have something here, because you got to remember they're coming off of Stripes and Caddyshack and all those other movies that were just like hangout movies for funny people, whereas this had a legitimate story to it, and creating characters that like everyone wanted to be Bill Murray in Ghostbusters. That was the person you wanted to personify. And I hadn't seen that since, or I hadn't seen that before. I hadn't seen anything hit the zeitgeist in a way. Like I guess Star Wars was close to it because Star Wars was kind of everywhere, but that freaking Ghostbusters logo was on everything. Everything. It was everywhere. And so, but it's also a great movie. Like it's overlooking the fact of how popular it was, of how well it works. Like the three guys are so perfectly put together. It's small scale in a way. Like I was making this joke during the junket about how their first interaction with trying to capture a ghost is in the new movie is them in the Ecto 1 racing around a town, and she's in a pilot seat and they're blasting through the entire town, and it's big. Like even though you were doing a Ghostbusters, and in Ghostbusters it's just them in a dining room. And the stunt
and
was
at one point in a hallway, right?
They chase Slimer through a hallway kind of thing. But like the stunt is Bill Murray pulling the tablecloth off of the table, off the stuff. And so it's small because of the budget and because of them not knowing it, but it worked in its favor. And I went back and rewatched all the end of it too somewhat recently, and everything on top of the roof is just funny. and it's just funny. It still holds up. It's still incredibly funny. So there's a reason why it's as beloved as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think a testament to the film is I feel like I can say everything that Sean just said about the movie, but 10 years later. Yeah. And I feel like that's a compliment to the film. Is like I grew up and I knew what that logo was. You don't even have to put the word Ghostbusters out. You show someone that logo and you go, "What's that?" And they go, "Oh, it's Ghostbusters."
Yeah.
When you're a kid, it's a great introduction. It's not even like a horror film, but it's like such a great introduction to things that like are a little edgy. We talk about sort of like the Amblin films of the day, like a Gremlins or a Ghostbusters, where it's kind of, granted, my parents just whatever you want to watch, whatever. But when you're a kid and you're watching it, there's a part of you that feels like this is a little edgy and like, ooh, they just used a swear word. But like, there's a ghost, like it's kind of fun. I loved it. I had the toy, I had the action figures, and again, by this point, we're talking like these characters are almost 10 years old by this point.
Yep.
And I'm playing like what 10-year-old characters are kids playing with now that came out 10 years ago? They're either playing with characters that were created, 50 years ago, or they're playing with Minecraft. What is it? Minecraft?
Fortnite.
Yeah,
Fortnite. Minecraft's about you're like 6 years late on that.
Whatever it is, and no, it's just and I also went back and rewatched the movie before the junket, and there was and it had been a couple of years, and I kind of sat down and went, yep, it's still got it. It's still like from when you watched it when it came out to when I watched it, almost nearly 10 years later as a little kid, to both of us watching it now as grown adults. It's a testament to the film that the humor still works, the effects still work, the visuals still work, the performances still work. There's not really anything where you think like, oh man, age has not done that aspect of the film well. You just go, nope, it's still got it. It's still perfect.
Pretty remarkable. Gabe, you didn't choose it. Where'd you go?
No, so again, I guess this is favorite, not best, and I more wanted to pick something that is closer to me for nostalgic reasons and kind of hit me in a big way because, as I've mentioned, Ghostbusters I've enjoyed. I just never fell in love with it. And it's funny because we mentioned this last week is Evolution.
Oh, nice.
And I know it's a weird.
I love Evolution.
I love Evolution, and that is a perfect example of a movie that hit me at the right age. And I watched on repeat or on cable when it come up, and just the humor is great, and the weird monster things are great. And to this day, like I think a few months ago, I saw it on cable. I don't even know where I was because I don't have cable. But it was on, and I was like, oh, let me watch a handful of scenes. When the asteroid hits, and when they're like chasing him in the mall and stuff like that, and Orlando Jones is hilarious in it. It's one of those movies that just hit me at the right time, and now when I watch it, it puts a smile on my face just because I know every line of it. And it's fun. I think it has a really good. I mean, it's a testament to Ivan Reitman's ability to sort of play with tone in all of these things, where it has kind of creepy moments, and it has some creepy moments in that specifically. It's funny. It has there's like a sexiness to it here and there that he can play with, that, like mentioning like the oral sex joke where it starts to feel a little taboo, but it never quite, nails an R rating. Yeah. And I think that's a talent of his that's maybe underrated, or people don't call too often, of his ability to really play with the multiple sets of tones in a film. I'm
fairly serious that Bill Murray in Ghostbusters, where he's shocking the nerd but not shocking the blonde girl, and that you see that he's lying, that it was like one of the first times a light bulb went off in my head where I was like, oh, guys can do that. Oh, he wants to date her. And I was in 5th grade, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that that's possible. Like, those were the first moments.
Yeah. But looking back at his filmography, and he has a pretty, what's the word? He has a pretty like
diverse,
but like a, he doesn't have like 90 films that you need to watch in order to, he has like, he picks and chooses, things that he's directed over the years, and it's diverse, and it's every single one I go, oh, I loved that when I watched it. Oh, that was fantastic. Oh, I think I've seen all of these. Like, how often do you see, and you just happen to see all of them because they're on. Like, right. Dave is one I didn't see until I was in college, which was probably the perfect time to watch.
Oh yeah.
Dave like
delightful.
It's great. So I pick Evolution because it hit me at the right time. It has its own weird sort of nostalgic feeling for me, but Ivan Reitman in particular is like a sleeper all-timer where you look at his filmography and you go, oh, I love everything this guy's done. That's wild. And you don't necessarily watch a movie and go, I'm going to watch this Ivan Reitman movie, you know. You love the characters and the things that he creates in that, which I think is really
almost
special.
how I feel kind of about, I still stand by that one of the most underrated directors of all time is Rob Reiner. Like
similar. That's a very good comparison.
Every freaking thing the dude did Misery and A Few Good Men and Harry Met Sally and Spinal Tap and Princess Bride.
And then he went off a cliff. Rob Reiner fell off a cliff after a little while. He had a great run.
North.
And Rumor Has It, which is the only movie
I like
I ever
Bucket
walked
List
out of a
though.
theater.
I like Bucket List.
Oh, did he do that one?
Yeah, I like Bucket List.
All right, audience picks for Ivan Reitman.
We have Kevin's pick to get to.
Sorry, hey,
Kevin's.
Kevin weighed in before going away on vacation. That's how efficient he is.
He's good.
And so here's BDK's pick for Ivan Reitman blend.
All right, hey guys, obviously I'm not live on the show with you today, but I was recording this prior to leaving for my vacation because I wanted to be a part of the Ivan Reitman blend because he's one of the best filmmakers that I grew up watching. Obviously, him and his son, Jason Reitman, are on our show this week, which is wild. The interview that we did with them was so special, and that's why I had to ultimately go with the first Ghostbusters for Ivan Reitman, no question. And I know that seems like an obvious choice, but like that film had so much of an impact on me because it was genuinely scary to see it as a kid, one. Two, the practical effects that were used back then to bring those scenes to life, to me, was just special because it always showed you that you could do things in camera. And I know today a lot of filmmakers like to do things in post. Luckily, we have directors like Nolan and Denis Villeneuve and Tarantino who love to do as much as they can in camera. But back then, you know, when Ivan Reitman was making Ghostbusters, if you wanted to have a scene like he talks about in our interview where he's an egg starts to be cooked on a countertop practically, it's just amazing what they come up with. Necessity is the mother of invention. Also, I mean, clearly, as a kid, Ghostbusters was a big deal because the proton pack. I mean, my parents got my brother and I proton packs. I have some of my favorite photos I ever have with my father are myself wearing a proton pack. You run around and yell, "Don't cross the streams." And, that movie was just so special, from the song to the cast, Aykroyd and everybody, Harold Ramis and Ernie Hudson and, the incredible Dan Aykroyd. I mean, it was just a brilliant cast. Rick Moranis. I mean, there's so many, Sigourney Weaver. There's so many great actors in the film. But that film, to me, and just the Stay Puft Marshmallow scene, I always found that so mind-blowing watching that gigantic marshmallow walk through the streets of New York like that. But yeah, that movie has a very special place in my heart, and to this day. And I love Ghostbusters 2 as well. I think 2 is great. I know people don't love 2 as much, but I'll never forget seeing 2 for the first time because of that painting. And I remember being horrified and terrified by the painting, that guy's face on the painting. That movie was pretty wild. But Ghostbusters 1, no question, has got to be my Ivan Reitman blend pick. He's just a special, which is why, last week on the show, I emotionally even said how much it meant that we were going to have Jason and Ivan Reitman on together, because that conversation, as you've already seen in the show, is just so intimate and personal to watch father and son go back and forth. So that is my pick. I miss you guys and love you guys. Sorry I'm not on the show with you guys this week. I am on a cruise or on a boat somewhere, hopefully. And I will talk to you guys next week. Love you guys. Miss you guys.
Thanks, Kevin, for participating this week's show. Hope you're enjoying your vacation, and we'll see you back here next week. Audience picks for Ivan Reitman blend. So Harry Lichtman went with Ghostbusters. Mike Reyes of Cinema Blend said Dave, one of the most charming films from a charming man, Mike Reyes. Paul Marsh reminds us that it's his favorite, not best, and says Draft Day. Draft Day is a good movie.
I like Draft Day.
Yeah, Draft Day is a fun film.
In no way an accurate reflection of how that happens, but it's really fun to think about.
It reminds you that Kevin Costner is super charming when he wants to be. So
yeah.
It's just he's a movie star. Cam McKinney, John Palmer, Danny Thill went with Stripes, and Dave Hammer, I believe, is pulling our leg when he says 6 Days, 7 Nights, because nobody really likes that movie.
I liked Dave. It. That's another one.
6 Days, 7 Nights.
It's Harrison kind of sleepwalking through a movie.
But like, that's a fun, you got to look now when you look back on it. Don't you kind of like that? You're like, oh, remember when he had that face where we were just.
Yeah.
I guess I probably should.
Wasn't that like his like Air Force One? Like that was when he was still like a kid,
right?
And everything.
It was around that time. Yeah, for sure. All right, so for next week.
What?
Oh, is this an announcement?
Oh, I guess we can. Yeah, can't we?
I don't think we've said this anywhere.
Is he a bonus?
No. No offense to our bonus.
Yeah.
But like, no, it's the biggest movie of the week next week.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Okay, so for next week, our guest on the main show is Sir Ridley Scott. Sir Ridley Scott is joining ReelBlend to talk House of Gucci.
So Sean, could you just say that one more time?
And a lot of The Last Duel. Sir Ridley Scott is going to be joining us as a guest on ReelBlend.
He talks about a lot more than the House of Gucci, though. It's one of those interviews where like he just kind of naturally falls into.
Yeah. When I was doing Alien, when I was doing Blade Runner.
Or Gladiator, or
and
like, you know.
I propose a drinking game, guys.
Yes. Oh, all right.
Every time I ask him a question, if he doesn't actually answer, you have to take a shot.
Okay. Wait, he doesn't answer?
That he doesn't answer.
He doesn't actually answer.
He doesn't actually answer.
You'll be
but there's
hammered.
no connection between what he says and what I actually asked.
He more took... Which I don't know if it was just specifically Jake, because it didn't seem like it was a malicious thing.
It felt like it was just me.
It might have been specifically, but it doesn't seem like he like, you know, when someone dodges a question, they go yeah, and then they dodge your question. It felt like he started and then he was like, actually, I'm taking this train on this other track.
It felt like he heard like if my question had like 12 words in it.
Yeah.
It felt like he heard 2 of them.
Right.
And then talked about what those 2 words made him think about.
But what he says,
100%.
regardless of if it answered your question, what he says after.
What he says is interesting. I just wish I could like re-record a question that made sense between the 2.
Without giving too much away, there is a moment in this interview where Jake asks a question, Ridley rambles for a little while. Jake repeats the question, Ridley rambles in a different direction. And then Kevin goes up next and says, "No, but Ridley, can you just answer Jake's question?"
Which props to Kevin for being very nice and genuinely trying to get an answer to my...
It was a good question.
And he did answer it.
And he did answer it, yes. Then at that point, he did answer it.
But again, what he was saying was still interesting. It was
it's fascinating. Yeah.
Jake's questions were more suggestions.
Because he has more stories than he could ever possibly share.
It's brilliant. Well, tune in next week. You got a week's wait.
It's one of those conversations where he'll be like, we bring up Matt Damon and he's like, well, he and I had just done The Martian together, so it wasn't weird for me to hop on the phone with him. And I was like, oh my God, that's right, you guys did The Martian together. That's pretty amazing.
When a movie to the quality of The Martian, and I love The Martian, is one that you forget about in someone's filmography, that's pretty incredible.
That's pretty...
Yeah, we'll talk more about it next week. There's more. It's a fascinating discussion. We will have lots to talk about after that interview.
And
and before we overshadow, on Wednesday of next week,
yes,
we do have a bonus episode going up Wednesday of next week with the director of the new Resident Evil Raccoon
This is a really fun conversation.
Whose name escapes me.
Johannes Roberts.
Yes.
Awesome conversation. Awesome conversation. Totally. If you're a fan of those games and those kinds of that story. He's a giant geek who got to play with all the toys.
Jake is a big fan of that franchise, and you guys really connected on your love of the Capcom stuff. So
I think all 3 of us did. I think it was just a really nice, flowy, like, you know, Sean and I didn't have a ton of time to prep beforehand, but it was one of those where he was great enough where all of us, again, I would put it in that category of like, it really felt like a conversation where we were all just kind of shooting, like you would have natural follow-ups, I would have natural follow, like he would jump, you know, I walked away from that going, that was great.
I love any of our interviews when the person swears and then has to say to us, oh, can I swear on this?
Wait. Now, Ridley Scott swears and at no point asks for permission.
He doesn't
Never
care.
Once.
When's the last time Ridley Scott asked for permission for anything?
Oh, I can't wait for people to hear this conversation. It's so great. Okay, so next week we're playing, obviously, hashtag Ridley Scott Blend. So you can let us know your pick via Twitter using hashtag Ridley Scott Blend, or you can email us realblend@cinemablend.com. Reviews. We haven't written a review on the show in a long time. So if you liked the show, if you've been listening to us, and you'd like to send us a review, you can go over to Apple Podcasts and you can write one down there. We'll be able to see it, or you can email us at the same place that you play the Blend game at ReelBlend@cinemablend.com. Premium is going to be the premium episode is going to be a preliminary discussion of this year's awards race, and so it's basically just at this point in November, us kind of pulling out a couple of movies and a couple of performances that we think are worthy of people checking out if you haven't yet. There's been a lot of movies that are hitting theaters recently. We've been able to catch up with a lot of them recently. That does not mean in any way, shape, or form that we're not going to be doing a lot of awards talk here on the main show. Of course, the long timers, the real folk. What do we call them?
Real ones.
The real ones know that we started the show as Awards Blend back in the day, and so that will be a big topic of conversation as we go forward. But again, if you want access to these premium episodes, which are always a lot of fun, very loose, very casual, filled with a lot of laughs, go to cinemablend.com/ReelBlend Premium. Follow us on all of our social media channels. And we'll be back next week.
Spider-Man
does whatever Spielberg passed.
Oh my God.